Hey everyone, producer Kyle here. I am excited to share with you this bonus episode from a training that Don did at our Elite Mastermind event in July in Asheville. This exclusive training is all about developing your people. We have been talking about the jobs crisis in America, and one of the best ways to combat that crisis is hiring and developing people to become leaders and create career longevity. If you are interested in attending an Elite Mastermind event, we do have one coming up in September. It's September 30th to October 1st in St. Augustine, Florida. This Elite Accelerator is going to be for those that want to elevate their business and take their Elite Execution System training even further. Located in the all-new DLP Capitol building in St. Augustine, Florida. We're very excited about that. This is definitely your exclusive opportunity to get up close and learn directly from the masterminds. So go to dlplending.com/accelerator to register today. That link is also in the show notes. But without further ado, let's get on with the show. This is Impact with Don Wenner.
So this next hour we're going to spend together is all about people, starting with people in our organization. Then we'll kind of move to focusing on ourselves first. But so your people are your greatest asset. A lot of people, old school kind of way of thinking, in my belief, is that people are a liability, right? Payroll is a liability. People are your greatest asset. Treat them that way. Right? Simply put, treat them that way. Most organizations don't. They simply don't. They look at it more as a liability and something they want to avoid, right? As we talk more and more about automation, which is a part of the jobs crisis we'll be talking about tonight, more people think about the key of growing a business is to have less people, right? And certainly there's value and need to automate and use technology, but it is a great privilege, a great opportunity to employ people in your organization. And you need to accept that way. I hit yesterday, I got my bi-weekly payroll report, and we broke 1.2 million in payroll for the past 2 weeks, right? That scares the heck out of a lot of people, right? If you imagine they had 1.2 million of payroll in 2 weeks, right? Probably this time next year, there's a good chance we'll break 1 million a week of payroll, right? It wasn't that long ago. I remember when I saw we hit a $100,000 payroll cycle, and I said, oh my goodness, like $100,000 for 2 weeks, like, $200,000 a month, right? We're now at 2.4 million a month in payroll. That excites me, right? That's exciting to know I'm paying out $1.2 million to the families who work hard for us, right? The fact that I've realized recently that now at about 400 employees, I have 1 million hours that people are working for me a year, right? So I have the ability to direct and make an impact with not my, however many hours I work a week, right? And I'm going to show you my schedule in a moment, but I have the ability to direct 1 million hours around making an impact each and every year, and that number is growing, every month, right? That's an amazing opportunity and responsibility, right? So we all want, great people in our organizations, right? And we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but a great person in my organization might not be a great person in your organization. So an A player for me might not be an A player for you. How I think about A players or having great people in your organization is there's two components to it. The terminology often used is right people in the right seats. Another way to think about it is I need great teammates. I need somebody to be a great teammate and a great producer. Okay? So somebody who's the right person means they're a great team member. They're good to be around. They support teammates. They embrace the culture. They're for the company. They're there and pushing the company forward. They care about the company's success. And then the person who's the right person or a great producer is able to do the job they were hired to do at a high level. They're able to accomplish the expectations that they're responsible for. And it's very often, especially as your growing organization is changing, to deal with one of those two issues, right? You have people who are great, positive, high energy, great to be around, love the company, but they can't produce, right? They just struggle to produce. They can't get results, but everybody loves them, right? In terms of they're wonderful to be around, right? That's a tough problem. Sometimes you can solve it by putting them into a different seat that they're capable of being productive in. Sometimes you can't. right? If you have somebody who's a great producer, but he or she's an asshole, pardon my French, right? That's a hard problem to solve for, and usually one you can't solve for. And that's a tough thing to do, right? When you're growing an organization, you've got limited resources, and you've got somebody who gets stuff done, but nobody wants to be around, right? Keeps turning over, causing you to turn over people because nobody wants to work with him or her. That's a problem, right? We have at DLP, we call it the chug test or the no a-hole policy. The chug test is a simple way that I go through anytime I'm interviewing people, which is still the #1 allocation of my time. I use the chug test, which is, would I want to go grab a beer with this guy or gal, right? And another way to think about it is, we're in 21 states. We have employees today, so I don't sit next to every employee we hire every day, right? I may not never sit next to that person. I may only see that person 1 hour a year, right? But I think about, would I want to have to sit next to this person for 50 hours every week for the rest of my life, right? And that's a way to think about hiring, people who are the right person for your organization, but they need to be able to be productive. They need to be smart and talented and capable of doing what you need. So the process, though, of finding these people, it's not a mystery. They're not, some unicorns that you can't find. Finding great people and getting them to be productive is a process or system just like acquiring investors or acquiring real estate. You have to do work. So it starts with first recruiting, and that starts with some basic things. And we'll cover these. The first place that it starts with is deciding, and this may sound simple, but this is where most small organizations miss out to start off with, is first deciding what you want the person to do. So defining the job first. So clearly articulating what is the role, what are the responsibilities of that role, what are the quantifiable expectations, the results that person is going to own in your organization, and what are the key numbers that person is accountable for. We call that tool, and I'll show it in a minute, called the RREK. And before we start hiring for somebody, we first identify what we want them to do, right? So you may say, I'm not good at operations and I need a chief operating officer. Well, guess what? A chief operating officer at DLP, their job is going to be very different than the COO in your organization, right? The COO in my organization, when I was 50 people, would be very different skill set than I need in a COO today at 450 people, right? Where we are in that journey. So you got to identify what it is you're actually looking for first. And that's a hard thing to do if you're filling a new role, right? That takes time to really think about, what do I want this person to accomplish? Because too often what happens is you could hire a great person, but you've never clearly identified what success is going to look like. And then they come aboard and they don't immediately drive results, and you say, this person isn't working out. And you say, well, why aren't they working out? They're just not getting what I need done. Well, what did you want them to accomplish? Do they know what they're supposed to be accomplishing? Do you know what you need them to accomplish? So you got to either figure that out up front, which is the easier way. It's still not easy. Or the harder way is you figure that out by keep hiring the wrong person, and they help you figure out what you actually wanted to hire, and you figure it out the third or the fourth or the fifth time. And we've done it both ways. The first way is easier. First, identifying that role. We don't always get it right the first time, but that's the first. So determining who it is you're looking for. And I find too often most organizations don't do that, because I hear all the time from people. So if anybody doesn't know this, DLP has 2 headquarter locations, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and St. Augustine, Florida. Does anybody think Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, or St. Augustine, Florida are the mecca of talent? Anybody think that, right? I do. Well, I mean, Brian grew up in Bethlehem, so I mean, right? But they're not the mecca. We were in Bethlehem our first 8 years long. Do you think there's any talent in Bethlehem who doesn't already work at DLP? There's very, very little for our organization, right? It's not the place. Try to imagine getting people to move there too, right? It's a lot of fun. But in all seriousness, right? So, because I always hear from people, there's no good people out there. It's impossible to find good people. I can't find them because I'm in this market or I'm this size organization. It's baloney. People don't do the work. They think like, because I have a website and I buy some real estate, people are just going to knock on my door and show up looking for a job. You have to do the work. So first, identifying who you want to hire, and then putting the job out there, right? So too often I find organizations, I need to hire a head of operations. Well, do you have a job ad posted? No, right? Have you ever drafted a job ad, and did you post it, right? Those are two different things. They both have to get done. You have to draft the job ad, which you need to know what you want the person to accomplish, and then you got to post the job ad, right? And most organizations don't even have that done. We still make the mistake. I'll talk to some of my junior leaders, and they say, I really need this person. And I'll go and pull up our list of job postings and say, well, I don't see the job posted. Well, I haven't done that yet. Well, how the heck do you think we're going to hire this person, right? So you got to figure out who you're going to hire by setting that roles, responsibility, expectation. And then we use a tool which we make available to all of our elite members. We use a tool called, we use a technology or system called Predictive Index. And there's two tools we use. One's called a Job Pro, and one's called a cognitive tool. So we first go and we determine what are the behaviors that we need this person to have. So the leaders who are involved in this role, we go and complete a behavioral assessment for what we want this person to look like. And that sets the criteria. Do we need them to be highly driven? Do we need them to be really extroverted? Do we need them to have a high attention to detail? Do we want them to be really patient, or do we want them to be driving? Do we need them creating new things, and do we need them to be okay with lots of change, or do we want them to be somebody who's good with structure, right? Those are very different personalities, right? Somebody who's in charge of operations at DLP, especially say 5 years ago, coming in saying you have to develop SOPs from scratch, wouldn't be somebody good who's been working at Microsoft in a process development role for a very organized organization, right? That person would come in here and be overwhelmed, not know where to start, because they came into an organization with clear process, right? You might think, oh, I'm hiring this person who works at this big organization. They have all these great SOPs and great processes. That's the type of person I want to hire. Guess what? You hire that person who's a mid-level manager in a well-organized company that when she got there, or he got there was well-organized, isn't going to come create organization in your organization, right? So it's very different. The person I need, somebody in operations for an entrepreneurial organization, wouldn't fit in a Fortune 500 company, and vice versa. So we determine what does that person look like we're going to hire, what do we want them to accomplish. We write a job ad that attracts them to want to come work here. Our job ads, and you can go to dlpcapital.com and look at our job ads. Our job ads don't say, must have 5 years experience, must have this degree, must have this skill. We're not trying to screen out people in the job ad. We're trying to attract people to want to come work here, right? And then once we place those jobs on job boards like Indeed, that's the big one. There's other ones like ZipRecruiter and such. Or in certain roles, senior roles, we'll hire recruiters as well. But once we get the word out that we're looking for this role and candidates start coming in, then you have to go and do the work. So again, I find organizations who, and again, we've had this problem in our organizations. All right, you did all this stuff. You set everything up. You figure out who you want to hire. You know what they look like. You posted the job ad. Resumes start coming in, and you don't do anything with them. Right? I'll have new leaders who join our organization, and they say, oh, I haven't gotten around to looking at the resumes yet. 3 weeks later, well, what do you think is going to happen? If you don't start the process and put them into screening and start evaluating them, you just lost 3 weeks. You just delayed and exacerbated your problem for another 3 weeks, right? So you have to review those resumes. I review the resumes all day long as they come in. If the roles I'm involved in hiring, I look at it. If it makes sense, if I think it's somebody that'd be a fit for this job, I send them to HR. And for us for years, that was just one coordinator who did 20 other things at DLP, right? And then that person calls them, sends them an email. We send them a video interview called Spark Hire that they go and they answer some questions. It's a great technology where they interview themselves. And then we have them complete a behavioral assessment through this tool called Predictive Index, where it tells us what type of personality they have. Are they driven? Are they a collaborator, right? For certain roles, you might want somebody who's great being on a team and supporting a leader. If you're hiring somebody in a leadership seat, you probably want them to have a high A. You want them to be willing to get out in front and lead and make decisions, right? I found that no matter how much I try, people with low A's are not going to lead. They're just not. And that's okay if that's not the role you're looking for them to do. So then we put them, so they do a video interview, they do a behavioral assessment, and they do a cognitive assessment. A cognitive assessment tests their processing speed, how quickly they learn and process new information. The smaller, the more entrepreneurial, the less organized your organization is today, the smarter the people you have in your organization need to be. If you're in a very well-organized business, everything's written out. There's a clear book they can look to tell them what to do and when to do it and how to do it, and you just want them to follow that book. So a lot of times, actually, people with lower cognitive scores are better because they don't question it. They don't question the system. They're just happy to do what's told. They'll do it for 5 years, 10 years, never think about doing anything else, and chug along just fine. But if you're in an organization that's rapidly changing and you're moving and doing different things, you need people who can learn and adapt and react to changing information, changing circumstances quickly. And that's where high cognitive scores come into place. And if you decide in your organization that you want to be a type of organization where people move up, where people come in entry-level roles and become leaders, you need to think about that up front. So example, I don't hire a receptionist with a low cognitive score, right? Because I want that receptionist to grow to be a leader, right? I'm hiring for that mindset now, and I don't want to have a limitation where he or she can't later, right? If I think this is a role that's going to be a breeding ground to a leadership role later, I'm paying attention to if they have a high A now, because otherwise they're not going to be willing to step out and lead, and they won't ever take charge of a team. If that's the type of role I'm looking for, it's important. So we go through and they interview themselves, they complete these 2 assessments, and that comes back. We just throw it into today. We're about to roll out what's called an ATS, which is an applicant tracking system. But today, this one coordinator does this. She puts it all into a Google folder, a Google Drive folder, and now I have a link to watch a video interview. I have a behavioral assessment, and I have a cognitive assessment. And I take a look at that, and if they're not a fit, I usually know I can roll them out in 5 minutes. I look it over and say, pass. All right, and then they send the person a nice email saying, sorry it wasn't a fit. If they look like there's somebody we're interested in, then they go into a first interview with somebody. Usually the hiring, so whoever's most responsible for hiring that role. That interview goes well. That's usually a Zoom or phone interview. Then we do a panel interview where we get everybody involved in that role together, and we follow a process of really getting deep into interviewing them. Ask a lot of deep questions. We follow kind of a top grading methodology, which is a book by a guy named Brad Smart, great book on hiring A players. And if that goes well, then there's usually additional interviews. We do all different types of assessments depending on the role. If we're hiring analysts, we're going to give them a deal to underwrite. We're going to give them an underwriting model. We're going to give them an OM on a deal and see what they do, right? If they're a marketing person, we're going to have them, if we're hiring a writer, we're going to have them write something. We're hiring a designer, we're going to have them design something, right? We're going to put them through some testing of skills. Then whenever possible, especially leadership seats, and we're always going to meet them face-to-face as well, I'm interviewing 4 or 5 people here at the event this week who we have here at the event to be a part of the event, people who are interviewing for senior roles. And this is an opportunity for me to interview them and see how they interact with all of you. I might be asking some of you for some feedback on some of these people as they interact with you. But we have people, we want to see them live in action, right? I want to see them outside of an interview format. I want to take them onto a job site. I'll bring people involved in acquisitions. I want to take them onto an acquisition trip, right? If it's somebody in property management, it's going to be a property manager. I want that, and I expect that person to do rank comps. Tell them a property they might manage or they will manage, and have them go out and shop some comps, right? Have them come back and do work and see what they come back with. You want to invest this it sounds like a lot of time. It is a lot of time. But I'd rather spend 40, 50 hours to find the right person who I'm expecting to work for me 40, 50 hours every week for years, right? I'd rather do this one time than have to do this multiple times. So then after they go through all those steps, if everything goes great, then we do reference checks. Yes, reference checks are important. They work. Yes, they're only going to give you good references. You can get other ones as well. But it's about the types of questions you ask and what you're concerned about, right? If I'm concerned of this person's ability to dig in and roll up their sleeves as a senior leader and do real work, right? I'm going to be probing for those questions. They might give me a reference who's going to tell me, so-and-so is wonderful at leading teams. He's so able to stay and only be focused on the big picture, and he never gets mirrored down into the details, right? And they might be thinking they're telling me this really great thing, and I'm thinking, all right, that's not the guy for me, right? So you can drive those interviews even with people they know to get to, what are the things you're concerned about, and either get affirmations that they're able to do what you need, or vet out what the issues are. So that's a really important process. All that goes well. Then we get to making decisions. So we do those reference checks, and now becomes a last big important part of the hiring process, which I find all this took a lot of time, right? I might have spent 10 hours designing the job. I might have spent, we spent a few hours doing the assessments that we want them to do. Then we put 20 people through this assessment process. This isn't just one person, right? That's a mistake if you only end up interviewing one person. We had hundreds of applicants. We put 20 of them into screening. We then interviewed 4 or 5 of them multiple times. We narrowed it down to one person. We did reference checks. We put them in the field. Maybe it was 2 or 3 people, right? We put in hundreds of hours. And then I've seen many of my own leaders do this. Then they email the person a job offer and wait for them to respond, right? No, you got to understand the best talent, not only are you're interviewing them, they're interviewing you. So key thing to keep in mind, especially this market, ask them through the process, are they interviewing for any other jobs? Are there other jobs they're considering? It's a very different situation of making a job offer when they have 2 other offers on the table than when they don't, right? And then I want to understand that I got to sell them on coming here. So I want to deliver that presentation, face-to-face if possible, but at worst via Zoom. And I want to be able to excel on all the positives and the benefits and get them excited. I don't want to just think I'm just going to send it to them and they're going to sign it. It doesn't happen. It's why I still do a lot of the job offer presentations myself, because some of the key roles, when I've tried taking myself out of it, it hasn't gone well enough, and we did all this work right, got the right person, and they chose a different job. And so it's important enough for me to make sure we hire that leader, to make sure they know it's important. And when the CEO gets on the meeting and delivers it to you, you feel more important to the organization and to this role, right? So it's where you can't delegate this off. You can't say, HR, go give this offer, right? Somebody, the leader in the organization, the person that person is going to report to, should be delivering that offer. So that's the process on finding people. There's a lot of work. But then once you find them and you wrote this great job offer and you got them here and you sourced them and you recruited, use things like LinkedIn, you went to your network, you go to events. I go to industry events like IMN. Usually I'm there to do 2 things. 1, meet with relationships I have, and 2, to interview potential hires. I'm there looking for talent at these events, and so looking through the network. People who work at companies that I respect in roles that we're looking for are great people to go recruit, right? So once you do all that work, that's just finding the person. Then once you get them here, you have to do the work then of setting them up for success, integrating them into the organization. You're going to spend more time once you hire somebody to do a job that you want them to do than you did before you hired them on their job, right? If I hire somebody to run marketing, I'm going to spend more time on marketing their first 2 months than I did before I hired them, because I got to spend time with them, getting them trained up, getting them on the same page, getting our thinking aligned, making sure they understand who the people they're working with are, setting them up for success. And that's why it's so important to identify what success looks like. This tool here called RREK, we'll send this out to you. I don't know if it's in this workbook or not, but this is the tool that I was referencing earlier, where we define their role. What are they responsible for? That's doing the job. What are the key numbers that they own? And what are the expectations of the results of their job? This is where you should start with any role you're going to hire for or you're already interviewing for. And if you already have people in your organization today, I'm sure I'm the only one who does, but if any of you happen to have people who work for you today who aren't as productive as you'd like, I encourage you to go in and reevaluate this now. And it changes when people are with your organization for a while. What their job was when they started is probably very different than it is today. So updating it and being clear on what's expected, because most people are good people. 98% of people want to do a good job at work, right? They want to be successful. They're not being successful and not doing a good job because they want to sabotage your company, right? It's that they don't know what success is, or they're not trained to do what they need to do. That's on you. And if they can't get there, then coach them out, right? You coach them up or you coach them out, which we'll talk more about in a second. So again, we talked about right person, right seat. Here's examples of job ads. You can look at them right on our website. We'll send you some examples. This is an example of the Predictive Index. So this is my assessment. My profile comes in as a captain. I have a really high A, which is, drive, want to be in charge. I wouldn't do well at all, being on somebody else's team, right? I would do a horrible job of that. And I have a relatively high B, which is social versus reserved. I'm very driving. The other side is patient. I'm about as far on the driving side. So if you want somebody driving change and so forth, that's great. If you want somebody patient and calm, I wouldn't be a fit. And then D, I'm very, very low on the D as well, which is flexible versus precise. So somebody high on the C, they're flexible, they're open to change. Somebody low on the D, I'm sorry, they'll be, they're willing to kind of adapt with a lack of clear information. They can move with limited facts and data. Somebody precise, high attention to detail. They want everything to be perfect. They want to proofread everything. They want to make sure the contracts are perfect. Those are, if I'm putting an attorney in place or a transaction coordinator or a closer, I need somebody with a really high D. I need them to be precise and on top of making sure every document is perfect. I would do terrible at that, right? So there's no right or wrong to the person's behavior, but it's what role you want them to be in. And sometimes we interview for somebody for a role, especially in our beginning days, they come in and they're interviewing for one role and we look at their assessment and they say, they'd be terrible at this job, but they could be great at something else. And we end up hiring them for something else. When you're in the beginning, growth stages, so many of the people I hired were not for the jobs they applied for. And so many people I hired, I ended up moving them into different jobs, especially as we got better at understanding how to use these tools, right?
Hey everyone, Producer Kyle here. Sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to remind everyone, if you are interested in the Elite Accelerator event in St. Augustine, September 30th to October 1st, go to dlplending.com/accelerator. Back to Don.
But once you hire them, that's the first step. Then you have to set them up for success. So we'll talk about some of the tools we use for that a little bit later. One of them is performance evaluations. It's a really, really critical management process to put in place in your organization. We do performance evaluations at our new team members' 90-day mark, and then every 6 months. And we'll give you a copy of our performance evaluation, which we're evaluating them, and we give them their performance evaluation before they start, meaning the format, the questions, and it's in a document we call an alignment workbook that they see from the beginning. So we tell them on day one, the test questions already, right? We don't hide it from you. We're showing you how we're going to evaluate you in 90 days and every 6 months. It's going to be against this, right? So there's no question mark what we want success to be. We list out their clear expectations they own, and then a bunch of questions around different components of our core values and of leadership and so forth. And again, we'll send you a copy of it. But it's really, really critical. And I'll have people who are an A player who come out on an A in a performance evaluation, and then we give them a promotion, and they take on more responsibilities, and they have a bigger job, and then they go down to a B or a C because they're not capable yet to do the job they have. And I give C's to senior executives pretty often. Seldom do they ultimately get an A, and I give them very specific feedback to why that is, and then I spend time working with them on those areas of need of improvement. But really important process of giving clear communication. Sometimes the person just can't get there, and they opt out. We very seldom have to fire people, especially in leadership seats. They realize they can't do the job, and it may be because we didn't do a good enough job training them or onboarding them or setting them up for success, or they did a better job than we did through the interview process of selling us and convincing us they were capable of doing things they weren't. But usually that you figure that out pretty quickly when you put these tools in place and you're really monitoring what they're expected to accomplish. It fleshes out pretty quick. And most of our turnover happens in the first 90 days. So the biggest rules for performance evaluation, so some notes, and we'll send this to you, but both parties have to complete. So both parties complete the performance evaluation, the employee first, and then the leader completes it before the meeting. Must be honest, vulnerable. Everybody has to understand. Really motivated people expect to get all A's. They think that's what they're used to, right? People are highly successful through school and life. They expect to get all A's. They don't here. The evaluation should be looking forward, should be motivational, but very clear. They should know the score. And a really important thing, we still struggle with it at times, you want to keep performance evaluations away from comp review. Performance evaluation should not be the time you give raises, right? At DLP, you don't make more money because you've been here longer, right? When I got into real estate, I used to joke a lot about as a young real estate agent, people would tell me all the time, you don't know what you're doing. I've been doing this for 20 years, right? I got 20 years experience doing this, right? And it was, no, you've got 1 year experience done 20 times, right? And so if I have somebody who's doing the same job for me in 4 years as they did today, I'm not paying you more to do that same job you did, 4 years ago. I'm paying you more to do a bigger job, right? To do more. That's how you get paid more. You take some of the job of your leader, right? So I don't want, we don't have a process once a year, twice a year, we come through and we say, oh, it's time to give you more money because you've been here longer. No, I'm going to give you more money because you're doing a bigger job. All right, so last couple notes before we dive into the personal compass. So these are just some notes here, and these are some kind of big lessons in this kind of slide here. Kind of sums up a lot of the key to building a great organization right here on this slide and the next one. So first is investing in your people. That's our job as leaders, accepting again that they're your greatest asset. Inspire them, challenge them, reward them, develop them, care for your people. And if you've read my book yet and read the chapter on this, it'll give you a lot of color here. People join companies and they leave leaders. So invest in your people. The old school management thinking that you should separate, people as employees from their personal life is bullcrap. You need to know everybody who reports to you. And I know most of the people in the organization, certainly those in the corporate organization. I know a lot about most of them. And we have 400 plus people. If you got 5 or 10 or 20 or 30 or something, you should know every person's wife's name, how long they've been married, their kids' names, their kids' ages, what they're passionate about, if they have a dog, if they have health issues. You should know about your people. The people stay with people they build relationships with. If you want people to stay with you in tough times and when the going gets hard, they need to know you care. That's why they leave leaders. So every one of our leaders, and we'll talk about this in the meeting point, they meet with every report every month. And those meetings start off with talking about their personal successes, what's going on in their life. And as your relationships deepen with your people, more and more of your one-on-one conversations become about their life, not just their life outside of work, but their life outside of work and how that impacts their work and what their goals are to their life and how that plays in and how they're balancing their time commitments. And they're going to be wanting you to help them with their life as a whole, work-life integration, as we call it, and we'll talk about in a minute. The number one human desire is that of importance. And I didn't come up with that. That's from the great Dale Carnegie in his wonderful book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. The number one desire of humans is the feeling of importance. Help your people feel important. And that's why much of what we talked about in the last session is so important. People want to be connected to a purpose. People want to be part of something bigger than themselves. If you're not providing that to them, they're going to be looking somewhere else. They want to be engaged. They want something bigger than themselves. That's a big part of this happiness crisis we'll talk about tonight is many people today aren't connected to a purpose bigger than themselves. They're lacking connection in their life. It's your job to provide that as the leader of your organization. Inspire people, motivate them. If you don't think you're an inspirational person, I bet you to your people you are more than you're not. But if not, bring in other inspirations. There's great video and content and experts you can bring in to bring inspiration into your organization. Recognize the best people in your organization and bring them forward as inspiration of what's possible in your organization. Challenge your people. People want to be challenged. They want to accomplish great things. They want to be recognized for doing great things. Right? They reward your people. The great saying is, if I had enough ribbons and bows, I could solve all the world's problems. Right? Your people actually want, once people, there's been a great study done on this, once people achieve a certain amount of income, so based on where, the average cost of living in your market, it varies, but nationwide it's on average about $75,000. Once people earn $75,000 a year, they're actually not motivated by money in most cases. They actually become less happy as they make more money in many cases. So they need to earn a certain enough of money that they can take care of their basic needs. But beyond that point, what motivates them is recognition and appreciation. That's why every meeting, we'll talk about at DLP in a moment, starts off talking about successes. We're constantly trying to recognize and highlight our team members. That's what people want. They want to feel recognized and appreciated. Develop your people, training, coaching, alignment, giving them opportunities to grow and care. And some great ways to show you care. This might seem hard for you guys right now, but it's really not that hard. Put a 401k in place. It's not that hard to do it, I promise. We can give you some guidance on it. Have insurance for your employees. It's not that hard. It's not that expensive. Show that you care. Offer to pay for education. Do simple things like we do at DLP. We buy everybody Fitbits. We buy them. They can download unlimited books. We do little things that show we're investing in them. So last kind of slide here before we move into the personal compass, and we'll take questions in between here. It's our job to connect people to a purpose. That's how we create importance. It's our job to help them make an impact, to encourage, support, and teach and show our people how to live fully, which is what the personal compass is all about. You want great employees who are great at their jobs, but you also want them to be amazing fathers, mothers, daughters, leaders in their church. You want them to be great people, right? That should be what you want. You want happy, healthy, and prosperous leaders in your organization, and it's your responsibility to make this happen. Okay? Take it as a responsibility. It's an opportunity and a responsibility to invest in your people. That's what's going to drive your organization more than anything else. And one of the best ways to do that is this tool called the Personal Compass. But before I get into the Personal Compass, I'm going to see if there's any questions, take a couple minutes of questions, and then we're going to dig into this tool. And I encourage you, as we do so, go to page 6 in your workbook, page 6 in your workbook. But raise your hand if you have any questions on everything we just talked about in terms of hiring, investing in great people. And we'll have more time to talk about these things later as well. But any burning questions anybody wants to ask before we dive into this tool, the Personal Compass?
We got one here. So you talked about growth-oriented employees, and we don't give pay raises for people who do their job. We pay them for doing their job, right?
Yeah.
And so do you ever have employees that are really good at what they do and just aren't interested in growth? And if so, is there ever room for a cost of living increase?
Yeah, great question. So first comment I'd make is they may not seem that interested in growth because you haven't given them a clear path of growth, and you haven't yet provided them with tools and ways to grow, right? When we bring people into our organization, give you an example, we have a landscaper, right? I don't know how old he is, 30-year-old guy who's a landscaper at a multifamily community, right? He earns $15 an hour or something, right? And he's 30 years old, not like he's 20, right? And so he's never had a desire to grow. He's been happily working probably $15 an hour jobs for the last 10 years, right? And we brought him into the organization, and he joined our group called Driven for Greatness, where we read a book together each month. We then talk about that book every other week together. A different leader presents on it. We give them a Fitbit. We give them Audible. He started listening to the book, started listening to books, using a Fitbit. He started contributing to the conversations around the book, and then volunteered to lead a meeting. Put on a bow tie, came in and led a meeting to 200 employees, and now is inspired and motivated, and his perspective on life has changed, right? He wasn't thinking about doing anything but being a landscaper, when he came to work for us, as an example. But certainly you're going to have some people in your organization who don't have a lot of drive, maybe older people, and that's a decision first for you to decide if those people make sense in your organization. I find the more you focus on building culture and building organization, those people will probably opt out, and that's probably okay. If you can't change that approach, and if you have somebody who is a great producer, individual sole producer, if they're supposed to be a leader of a team, they're not going to work if they're not focused on personal growth and development, because they're not going to develop their people. But if they're a single producer, that's a decision you have to make. If you have room for sole producers who don't want to get any better, don't want to do anything different, want to do the same job 10 years from now, no different, no better, or just happy with what they're doing, you have to make that decision. And you may not need to give a salary increase depending on the role. They may be able to earn more in terms of bonus or other forms of compensation because they at least got a little bit better, or your organization just grew enough that they're doing more transactions or deals or doing more work because the organization's bigger. But that is a tough situation when that comes about. So it's a great question.
Got one right here. Don, what's the resource that you use for let me make sure I got this. So every new team member gets a Fitbit?
Yes. Every new team member who joins Driven for Greatness. So it's an option that they have when they join. So we have about half the organization in Driven for Greatness. So when they sign up, we send them out a bunch of things. We'll pay for Beachbody on demand. We give them a Fitbit. We give them an Audible account. We're now switching. Audible just canceled their business program as of July 1st. So now we switched to a program called Librio, Librio.fm, which is another kind of online book program. It's so far been really great. You also can listen to Building an Elite Organization there. It's still not on Audible, but you can on there. So everybody is in Driven for Greatness.
All right, we got some in the back. Getting my steps in.
You said that sometime at the end of the month, I think you said the 23rd of this month, you're getting everybody into the Compass program. How is this the first time that you do it, and how long do how long does it take? I normally do about 3 to 4 days a month on personal growth and development, but it seems like sometimes I'm spending more time than I should, so I'm just trying to get what your feedback on that.
Yeah, great question. So in terms of kind of personal development time that we spend as an organization, we do 4 to 5 DLP days a year. So this day on the 23rd is called Alignment Day, and it's about getting people aligned with themselves, their goals, where they want to go in life, getting them aligned with their team and with their leader. So that's one. We have a Vision Day, which is where we roll out our compass each day. We have Issue Solving Day every April, where we solve everybody's issues together. We choose issues and we solve them together. We have Alignment Day, and then we have Living Fully Day, and then we have a Frontline Obsession Week, which our leaders get out with the front line. But so those are kind of, I won't say even full days, 6-hour kind of activities generally. And then we do this Driven for Greatness, where we read a book together twice a month for an hour. And then we do, depending if they're in a leadership role or whatnot, they have 2 or 3 hours a month of kind of leadership and personal development trainings and such that we do. So that's kind of the kind of corporate training side. When they start with us, they need different skill sets. We have lots of different live and recorded trainings and such people go through, and then we have skills-based training, knowledge, industry-based training based on roles and so forth. So 4 to 5 days a month is probably a lot. I'm happy to chat with you about it, but that's kind of our rhythm. So this tool of rolling out the personal compass, we're going to all talk about. This is part of Alignment Day. Much of what's in this tool we already use. So we have a tool we've trained some of you guys on before called a one-page personal plan, which we help them think about their long-term goals and what they want to accomplish and lay out an ideal schedule. And then we have a tool called Living Fully Dashboard, which is what they're going to accomplish this year, which I'm going to show in a little bit. So we're basically merging those 2 tools together and adding a few things to provide clarity. So for our team, most of them have already done these types of things, but it's a new tool that kind of pulls it all together in an organized manner, in short.
Hi, Don. My name is Heather. You said something earlier today, or this morning, that the #1 allocation of your time is hiring and interviewing. And we all know in business and our personal lives, time is always, we don't have enough time. So can you expand on that and how involved you really are?
Yeah, but I'm gonna wait to answer that, because when I get to the end of this personal compass in a few minutes, I'll show you my schedule. I actually have it up as a slide, so I'll kind of show you how I spend my time, and I'll walk you through how I allocate my time and why. So yeah, it's a great question, Heather. All right, let's dig in. We'll take more questions then. Oh, you got one here, Doctor?
Here we go.
Go ahead, Doctor.
Go ahead. I got you. Dan, thank you very much for first of all organizing this activity. What attracted me to DLP is you are different than any other company in the United States. You are special. The reason you are special is this. I have got at least 100 loans, but nobody approved a loan in 4 days. You are the one who approved. Okay, all these things you are teaching us, moving you more and more elitist company. The thing is that your power, your strength was, okay, I'll talk to you. Come here. That's Friday, and we will sit on the breakfast table. I didn't know that you were even the owner of the company. I thought that Brian was the owner of the company. You talked 15 minutes, and you made the decision, and you loaned me $16 million.
Yeah.
I like to borrow the $1.6 billion. But the issue is, we are going different tracks. In our company, when we are hiring, everybody is ex-convict. We don't have any MBA. We don't have 95% of the workers are college, high school dropouts. We don't have that kind of this perfect system. But you are saying that, look, the most important thing is make the people feel important. This is from Dale Carnegie. Isn't it much easier to make the people important? He's just out of the jail. Nobody likes him. Nobody cares about it. The only thing he can do is go to jail again. He doesn't have any choice. Okay, you give the job and you put it in the same chair. You are learning. I'm working. You are listening to me, and that person appreciates you a lot, and you can make the big difference. You know, the thing is, if I look at the Chase Bank, everybody more educated than me. Okay, everybody is so great, but nothing is get done in Chase Bank. Nothing get, because everybody is perfect. You know, if I sit down, first they look at me, oh, this is broken English. Oh, name is Ferken, Kelken. Okay, it's not even American. Okay, but the issue is your strength was that, okay, you are the one who's making the decision. It's the same strength we have in our company. I make the decisions, and I make the decisions every 5 seconds. I'm constantly between my properties with the employees. But the people you are surrounding, seems to me that everybody's perfect. You know, we need a little bit like high school person that I can talk to business about him, you know. Okay, I'm going to buy that, just a very simplified format, you know. What I'm saying, first of all, I thank you very much for the loans you gave me. You want to be a Fortune 500 company. I also want to be a Fortune 500 company. Hopefully we will be together, we will be. And good luck to you on that. And I'm learning a lot. I thank you very much for this.
Thank you. So into that point, Dr. Kukin, I mean, you're going to need, so that's amazing that you're doing that, and for sure that's you're choosing, and that's a great strategy, right? There's a lot of ways to go about how you're going to hire and build your organization, and that probably part of your kind of purpose and impact is helping these people in these situations. There's some great things to do, but those people, not every one of them, right? A lot of them are just going to be happy to have a job, and that alone, and coming to work every day on time and so forth, that's a big step kind of forward in personal development, right? But if you're going to be Fortune 500, you can't be the person roaming all your properties, making all decisions forever, right? So you're going to need to develop some of these people as leaders in your organization. And they can grow as leaders, as ex-convicts just as well. Actually, a phenomenal book called The Power, what's the name of it? Power of Discipline, not Power of Discipline, but I'll come up with it. But the guy was an ex-convict who wrote this book about the power of consistency. I'll pull it up then at a break. And it's an amazing story of somebody who made a decision to change and got approached. I think he went to like a Dale Carnegie conference or something and has built this incredible organization. So the focus, those people need help with developing their lives, and imagine the impact you can make if you could help them be a little bit better of a father, right? And impact their children and set a different path for their children. There's a lot of things we can challenge ourselves to do, and you've got a phenomenal opportunity with people with that, some troubled backgrounds there. So,
this has been Don Wenner on the Impact Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. You can check out our other episodes by subscribing wherever you get your podcast, or on YouTube, or check us out online by going to impactwithdon.com. I encourage and challenge you to make an impact.